Okay, today we're reading The Ugly Vegetables. That's by Grace Lynn. Sometimes I read the back that helps me understand what's going to happen in the story. So it says, when a little girl helps her mother plant, water, and harvest their backyard garden, they do things differently from their neighbors. What grows in their garden looks very different as well. Instead of pretty flowers, their garden grows only vegetables. Plain, ugly vegetables. But when the harvest time comes, the little girl and her neighbors discover how beautiful ugly vegetables can be. That sounds interesting. I think we should read it. The Ugly Vegetables by Grace Lynn. And I think this might be a true story because she says, for my mom and her ugly gardens. Must be true. In the spring, I helped my mother start our garden. We used tall shovels to turn the grass upside down. And I saw pink worms wriggle around. It was hard work. When we stopped to rest, we saw that the neighbors were starting their gardens too. Hello, Irma, my mother called to Mrs. Cremorine. Mrs. Cremorine was digging too. She was using a small shovel, the one that fit in her hand. Mommy, I asked, why are we using such big shovels? Mrs. Cremorine has a small one. Because our garden needs more digging, she said. I helped my mother plant the seeds, and we dragged the hose to the garden. Hi, Linda. Hi, Mickey, I called to the Fitzgeralds. They were sprinkling water on their garden with green watering cans. Mommy, I asked, why are we using a hose? Linda and Mickey are using watering cans. Because our garden needs more water, she said. See, very different. Then my mother drew funny pictures on pieces of paper, and I stuck them in the garden. Hello, Roseanne, my mother called across the street to Mrs. Angelho. Mommy, I asked, why are we sticking these papers in the garden? Mrs. Angelho has seed packets in her garden. Because our garden is going to grow Chinese vegetables, she told me. These are the names of the vegetables in Chinese, so I can tell which plants are growing where. You see, she's drawing the symbols. One day, I saw our garden growing. Little green stems that looked like grass had popped out from the ground. Our garden's growing, I yelled. Our garden's growing! I rushed over to the neighbors' gardens to see if theirs had grown. Their plants looked like little leaves. Mommy, I asked, why do our plants look like grass? The neighbors' plants look different. Because they are growing flowers, she said. Why can't we grow flowers? I asked. These are better than flowers, she said. Ooh, beautiful. Look at that. Wow. Soon, all the neighbors' gardens were blooming. Up and down the street grew rainbows of flowers. The wind always smelled sweet, and butterflies and bees flew everywhere. Everyone's garden was beautiful, except for ours. I wonder why. Our garden was all dark green and ugly. Why didn't we grow flowers? I asked again. These are better than flowers, Mommy said again. I looked, but saw only black, purple, green vines, fuzzy, wrinkled leaves, prickly stems, and a few little yellow flowers. I don't think so, I said. You wait and see, Mommy said. Sometimes, oh wait, wrong page. Should always read this page first. Before long, our vegetables grew. Some were big and lumpy. Some were thin and green and covered with bumps. Some were just plain icky yellow. Ugh. They were ugly vegetables. Sometimes I would go over to the neighbors and look at their pretty gardens. They would show the poppies and peonies and petunias to me, and I would feel sad that our garden wasn't nice. Have you ever felt like that? One day, my mother and I picked the vegetables from the garden. We filled a whole wheelbarrow full of them. We wheeled them to the kitchen, and my mother washed them. She took a big knife and started to chop them. "Ay-yow," she said when she cut them. She had to use all her muscles. The vegetables were hard and tough. And I'm going to have to do my best job trying to read this. "This is shou huang gao," Mommy said, handing me a lumpy, curled vegetable. She pointed at the other vegetables. "This is xin zao. That is tong hao." Have you ever seen those vegetables before? I went outside to play. While I was playing catch with Mickey, a magical aroma filled the air. I saw the neighbors standing on their porches with their eyes closed, smelling the sky. They took deep breaths of air like they were trying to eat the smell. The wind carried it up and down the street. Even the bees and the butterflies seemed to smell the scent in the breeze. I smelled it too. It made me hungry, and it was coming from my house. When I followed the smell to my house, my mother was putting a big bowl of soup on the table. The soup was yellow and red and green and pink. "This is special soup," Mommy said, and she smiled. She gave me a small bowl full of it, and I tasted it. It was so good. The flavors of the soup seemed to dance in my mouth and laugh all the way down to my stomach. I smiled. "Do you like it?" Mommy asked me. I nodded and held out my bowl for some more. "It's made from our vegetables," she told me. Then the doorbell rang, and we ran to open the door. Who will be there? All our neighbors were standing at the door holding flowers. "We noticed you were cooking," Mr. Fitzgerald laughed as he held out his flowers. "We thought maybe you might be interested in a trade." We laughed too, and my mother gave them each their own bowl of her special soup. My mother told them that what each vegetable was and how she grew it. She gave them the soup recipe and put some soup into jars for them to take home. I ate 5 bowls of soup. That's a lot of soup. Look, delicious. It was the best dinner ever. The next spring, when my mother was starting her garden, we planted some flowers next to the Chinese vegetables. Mrs. Cremery and the Fitzgeralds and the Angel House planted some Chinese vegetables next to their flowers. Soon, the whole neighborhood was growing Chinese vegetables in their gardens. Up and down the street, little green plants poked out of the ground. Some looked like leaves and some looked like grass. And when the flowers started blooming, you could smell soup in the air. Isn't that cool? A little bit of them all coming together. And then here is the different vegetables she did. It has the symbol in what I'm assuming is Mandarin, and the picture, and how to say it in English, kind of, and what it is. And then there's even a recipe. You could make ugly vegetable soup. How interesting. Enjoy.